Today's April 15th, 2024. Current Bitcoin price is $63,161.
Welcome to the BitBite podcast, your source for news and information about Bitcoin and the cryptocurrency space. This podcast is meant for educational and entertainment purposes only and is not financial advice.
How's it going, Rick?
Oh, not too bad. Just not trying to cry watching the price of Bitcoin and the fate of the world.
The fate of the world is in the balance. Yeah.
It's kind of crazy.
Yeah. The markets, I'm looking at the markets in general, and I mean, they've all kind of taken a pretty good hit. Like your Apple, your Tesla, your Netflix, they're down considerably. Apple's down 2%. Tesla's down 5%. Netflix is down 2.52%. The greenest chart on here right now is the DXY.
Yeah. The dollar is getting strong.
Is strong. That, and then it looks like the Chinese yuan. Looks like it's doing pretty well too.
Everybody else, not so much.
And the yen. Actually, the yen's looking okay. Well, I mean, it's up by 0.06%.
I was going to say, it's not in the toilet as low as it was before.
Well, even the Chinese yuan, it's only up 0.26%, but the dollar is up, 0.14%. I guess, I mean, they're just the only ones that are really on green in this sea of red that, that's dominating the markets right now.
Yeah.
And I mean, and you brought up a good point. I mean, a lot of it is because of what's going on right now in the Middle East, right?
Right. I don't know. The past couple of weeks, there's been a few pain points for the markets. I mean, first CPI came out showing, 3.5%.
Yeah. And do you remember what it was when we recorded last time? I think it was predicted to be 3.4.
Yeah, that was the prediction.
And then it came in at 3.5. And that's up from 3.2 from February. So it was higher than predicted, and it was already predicted to be higher. So I don't know. Although they're saying there's some bright spots such as food prices, household buying power is also up over the past year as wages growth has outstripped inflation, which I don't believe that.
Now,
I don't know where they get that. Like.
Well, just think about it this way. It's all PR and spin. And, like I said, everything that comes out from the government lately is just pure propaganda and gaslighting. So, yeah, wages are outstripping inflation for food. No, I don't think so.
It's funny because I'm looking at some of these scales here, and they've got, so for all items, it was 3.5%. Food, they have a 2.2% increase. Food, so and then they break it into food at home, which is at 1.2. Beef roasts are up 11.2%. Baby food and formula is up 9.9%. Hot dogs are 6.2%. Lettuce 5.8%. Tomatoes 4.5%. How do they get 1.2 when all
2.2 when everything else is like 3 times as high?
Yeah, well, 1.2 is what they're saying is the one for food at home, and then you're going through this like whole chickens 3%. There's nothing that's below even 2.2.
No.
Biscuits, rolls, and muffins, that's at 2.6%. Food away from home. Okay, so they show food from vending machines up 6.2%. Other food away from home, 6.1%. Meals and snacks up 5%. Full service, 3.2%. Like last time I did averages, like that's not how averaging works.
Especially when you want more roast beef and hot dogs than you do lettuce.
Right? Yeah.
That's even still 6%. No, don't believe your lying eyes, Hans. We're not gaslighting you at all.
No.
Food inflation was only 1.2%. You would believe.
I'm like, there's not a single one of these metrics that I'm looking at on here that's below what they're saying is kind of what I would assume that's an average, right?
Yeah.
1.2%. Even if we take the 2.2, the closest thing is biscuits, rolls, and muffins at 2.6.
Hey, but everything else is down like infinite percent to make up that difference. So
now I can kind of see the energy one when I look at the energy graph here. So they're saying energy's up 2.1%. Electricity was up 5%, and gasoline was only up 1.3%. I could see where you kind of come up with an average of 2.1 between the two. But
I don't know. I wish gas was only up 1% for me.
yeah. Yeah, it's kind of nuts. I mean, and we were talking about that before where Jerome Powell was talking about 3 interest rate reductions this year still. And now I'm wondering if they're going to take them completely off the table. Because it was like 6 to start the year.
Yeah. I don't think, I think we've been talking about them trying to aim for their soft landing. And there is no soft landing. There's only pain.
Yeah.
So we're seeing that.
Yeah, and they're still claiming the labor market's strong.
Yeah, as Tesla's laying off like 1,400 people, and yeah, literally. I mean, a lot of big corporations are doing some massive layoffs to try and cut costs, but the market is strong.
The market is strong. Yeah, I can't believe this. Notable inflation per month over month. Eggs 4.6%. Pork chops 3.3%. Frozen fish and seafood up 2.4%. It's ridiculous, man. It's nuts. Yeah, I'm just going to get lost in this chart, and it's just going to make me angry. So, yeah, I mean, the markets have been shook. Go ahead and what are we looking at with our theoretical purchase?
Okay, so theoretical purchase back on October 27th, $3,000 at that time would have bought you 0.0885 Bitcoin. And things were riding high recently. We were above, we turned that $3,000 into over $6,000. But we've lost a little bit of a step. We're almost at 5,600, so 5,590.
Yeah.
So went back down another $400.
So we're below the double mark. I mean, slightly below, but we're still below it. So, and I think is that the lowest that we've seen in a long time?
And in a little bit.
Going back here,
I'm looking at the prices, and I am seeing.
Oh, it looks like March.
No,
1st.
It got March 24th. It was kind of low.
Going back to this, March 1st was 5,500.
Okay, so that's the previous low, but that was before we even cracked the all-time high. So
yeah,
at least right now this is kind of the lowest period before it started really gaining steam. In March.
Yep. So I mean. I think we had talked about that before where we've never had 8 straight candles of green in the Bitcoin charts before.
Well, monthly candles, right?
Yeah, monthly candles. So we may not be bucking that trend yet.
Nope. I mean, there's always a first for Bitcoin, and this market's, 14 years old now?
Yep.
So never had 8 months in a row going positive. And it started in October, November positive, December, January, February, March, April. That's 7 right there.
Yep.
So just with the confluence of things happening between inflation at the beginning of the month, war, I mean, that's going to have a much bigger effect on it, potentially. I mean, there's a good chance we're not going to break that cycle. And it would have to, top 71,000?
Yeah, well, and I think, what did we get? That was, I'm going to have to look at the close at the end of the month there, but I think that's about right. 71,000 for the monthly close. And because I think that's what it was. It was the monthly close and the quarter close, right?
Yeah, which were all-time highs.
Mm-hmm.
For quarterly closes and monthly closes. So Yeah, but you know what? We kind of were hoping that something like this was going to happen.
Yeah. No,
We want that kind of sideways pullback to happen before the real launch happens.
right. And that's going to be the hardest thing, is that for those of you that are like, hey, you guys, everybody's talking about, post halving, like it's going to go crazy. It's like, well, it will, but it's usually 3 to 6 months after the halving.
I don't think it's going to take that long this time, since we've had kind of this crazy run.
No, I don't think so either. And I do think that the bull cycle will be shortened this cycle. I don't think it'll be as prolonged. I think everything's kind of getting reduced this cycle, but I could be wrong.
I don't know. I still don't think we're going to see the peak for another year after whenever we cross back above 69 and 70, 73, and it just takes off. It's going to be a while before it comes down, I think, still.
Yeah, I don't know. Everything seems accelerated this market for me so far from previous markets, but I could be wrong. And the other thing too is that even if they kick interest rate reductions to 2025, right? That could be additional catalysts that happen at that time, depending on what happens in the economy between now and then. But
well, I think if inflation keeps rising, I don't know if Bitcoin is necessarily going to be the hedge against inflation. The dollar was for a little bit, or not the dollar, gold versus the dollar held pretty well for a little bit, but then it just got stuck at 2,100 before its recent rise. I'm just curious to see what happens with those type of assets, with gold and Bitcoin, what they're going to do if inflation keeps going on this track.
Yeah, I do still think, I think so far for the past, basically 14 years, Bitcoin's been one of the best hedges that you could get into. Because, for wealth creation, it's all about compounding, right? You need to find something that's going to outstrip that current inflation rate. So,
yeah, and over the history, just any 5-year period, Bitcoin's kicked everything's butt.
Yeah. Looking at the ETF flows, we're seeing a pretty dismal story between basically the end of last week. It's hard to tell because it's Monday and we don't have data that's quite accurate yet. We do know that Grayscale continued to sell. When we look at last week, we were talking about that earlier, and like Monday last week was a bad day. And then we had another bad day on Tuesday, but it slowed down. And then we got 2 days of positive. And then on Friday, we had another down day, which actually kind of surprised me too, because we kind of stayed in some of that positive momentum until I think late Friday. And that may have been when the rest of those sales happened from Grayscale, because we were up above the 70,000 range until that time happened. So we'll have to keep an eye on the charts and just kind of continue to watch the ETF flows. And kind of in that news too is that China, or Hong Kong, I should say, actually launched their Bitcoin ETF, and they launched an Ethereum ETF, which is it's positive for Bitcoin because it means more additional revenue channels can come in. But right now, like the guy who was covering a lot of the Bitcoin ETF in the States as it was kind of unfolding, Eric Balchunas, I always say his name wrong. He's only predicting about, 500 million in flows over the first year for this ETF out of Hong Kong. And that's combined between the Bitcoin and the Ethereum ETF. So something to keep your eye on.
Well, it's going to be just another off-ramp for people to get into Bitcoin.
Yeah. Yeah. And so he was quoted as saying, just to be clear, all this is clearly positive for Bitcoin as it opens up more avenues to invest. I'm just saying it's child play versus US. Also, long-term, some of this could go away. More liquid, tighter spreads, lower fees, and bigger issuers involved. But short to medium term, we have more moderate expectations. That's all. So he's just not expecting it to go gangbusters like it did in the States. But the one that launched in the United States, like nobody was expecting it to do as well as it did. So,
oh, for sure.
And then the last thing we have now is we are about 4 days away from the halving.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy.
Which that'll take us out to if we go through the 20th, I mean, and that's the thing, like the halving be it a sell the news type of event. We were talking about that, kind of last week too, where you got people selling some of their Bitcoin holdings too to pay for taxes, those types of things. So
it is the April 15th as well. So
yeah. So, I mean, you may see some of that kind of take place. I mean, people are looking at the prices right now and they're like, well, I got to sell some money to pay taxes. And of course they're going to sell now. Right.
Right.
Or at least, they're like, oh, the market's tanking. Sell now, sell now, sell now. I mean, people panic. They get scared.
Well, I mean, if you're new to Bitcoin, this kind of movement is scary.
Yeah. And this is still, I hate to say it, but this is still relatively tame for Bitcoin.
Wait until the bull cycle really kicks in.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, it'll knock your socks off. And it's scary. I mean, it's pretty wild ride.
Yeah, absolutely. I completely agree with you on that.
So with that said, the halving's happening. Do you think that Bitcoin's going to go up in May, or do you think down?
In May?
Or not May. Will it be up by the beginning of May, or will it be down? Like, so 71, we'll say the last month will close.
I think it's very possible. Like, I personally still, and I think we've kind of talked about this. I don't know if we'll see Bitcoin dip below 58,000 between now and the end of April. I do think that maybe we are going to start to develop a larger range right now. We're going to stay between, let's see, if we look at this here, that's going to take us way far out. I would say we're probably going to stay range bound between 61,458 right in there to, let's see, because this will give you smaller to about, 70,000 may be kind of the new high for a while, where we stay range bound just between that 61 up to 71, kind of bouncing around.
So you're saying no, it's going to be down for the month of May.
Or
month of April.
For the month of April, I do think so. I think it's going to play into that whole narrative, because I think what's going to happen is the halving's going to happen. It's a non-event, and that's going to give the institutions time again to continue to accumulate at cheaper prices. And then it's going to take off like a rocket. I would say so this is my personal prediction. I could be completely way off, and I hate to say anything like this because every time I say something like this, I'm completely wrong. I would say by mid-May, we'll probably start to take off again.
Hey, that doesn't sound too bad to me. Honestly, that's fairly close to what I'm thinking. I'm thinking the range is going to be somewhere between 60 and 70, at least for the foreseeable future. Unless there's some crazy news that takes Bitcoin up to the moon, or, takes it down another peg or two. But it's going to be, the halving's going to happen. And the last few times the halving, 6 months out from the halving, it still hasn't even really hit its stride yet. And I think that's where this bull market is truncated. You're saying that, this bull run, it's going to be shorter. And I think you're right. But whenever the last crazy bull begins, that's going to be kind of the countdown. So once it crosses, 73 and starts taking off, I think we can start the clock on that. We'll be a year out from the top, year to year and a half.
Yeah. I wish I could be that positive. The whole thing I go back to is like, maybe this will be a super cycle. Maybe we won't have a drawdown again. And I do think that if we do have a drawdown, it's not going to be as severe as it was in the past. But at the same time, like right now we're building a very good foundation for where bottoms can be. The more longer we trade sideways in this range, the better off that is, because it's building all that support in this range. We know there's a lot of support here.
Yeah.
So yeah, I do think we'll end April down, and down by that. I still hold to that. Basically, that's a $10,000 range, 60 to 70,000. I think you're kind of right on that too. And I do think that maybe by mid-May, because people will see the halving, they'll be like, well, nothing happened. They'll sell off or continue to sell off. People will buy cheap. It'll climb back up, then it'll sell again. And then at that point, I think that's when we're looking at possibly rocket fuel, you know?
Yep.
But was there anything else you wanted to bring up today?
I think that's it for me.
So again, you can continue to subscribe to our newsletter. You do that by going to the bitbytepodcast.com and going under the sign up tab. When you get there, you can go ahead and put in your information, give us your email. You have to verify the email, and then you will receive the link to download your cold wallet storage checklist. And then we also still have on the deals page, you can get your LFAL or your Ledger. And again, you're buying directly from the manufacturer, but we get a little bit of a kickback if you use our links there. So,
indeed.
Cool. All right, man. We'll talk to you guys soon.
Alrighty. Bye.